When I was in grade school, we had the children's Bible storybook in our class, and I read the story of Abraham. God promised him to be a father of nations, and to be able to go to a promised land. And Abraham was trying to ask a question: How can I be a father of nations when I don't even have a son? And God asked him to go out and count the stars, And that same night, I went out and tried to count the stars, and I was thinking, wow, is this so hard? I mean, what's so hard, and why does it have to be like this? And suddenly God favored Abraham because of counting the stars. So I've often wondered, what that is. And then I tried to read the whole text, and I saw that you know it was day. Actually, it was daytime when God asked Abraham to go out and count the stars. I guess we always thought, stars are at night. That's why God asked Abraham to go out at night. But if you will read the text, it's actually asking Abraham to go out during daytime and count the stars. And that's actually the faith part there. God was telling Abraham, you don't see it now, but they're there. You know the stars are there, and even though you don't see it now, they are there. And that's my promise to you. But then again, Abraham was asking, how about the land, Lord? What's with the land? How will I know that you're not like the other gods who are just playing with man, or tricking us? And then God asked Abraham to get a heifer, a goat, a ram, turtle dove, and a pigeon. Imagine asking your wife, "Hey, hon, you know, are you being truthful to me? Are you really telling the truth?" And then your wife would tell you, "Get me a heifer, a goat, ram, turtle dove, and pigeon." That wouldn't make sense. But you know what? The Jews at that time, or rather Abraham, the people at that time, knew exactly what that meant. That's the language of covenant. Covenant is different from contract. Contract, you change uh, agreements. You reach an agreement, and if the other party doesn't do it, then the contract is cancelled. But it's different with the covenant. Because in covenant, you are just not exchanging ideas, you are just not exchanging agreements, you are exchanging yourselves. And that's what God was telling Abraham. I am not tricking you, because I am giving my life to you. I am making a covenant with you. It's the same thing in marriage. Ironically, in this episode of Abraham, he split the animals into half, and then God walked at the between those cut ups. It's like marriage. The parents of the bride, and the parents of the groom, and then the bride walks in between, as well as the groom. But that's it. It's probably nothing you know flashy for us, but think about it. At that time, you know uh people who didn't believe in Yahweh believed in many gods. And it's unheard of for those gods to be in the same level with man. It was always man trying to reach those gods. Egypt, they would give everything to their gods, offering up. The Greeks and the Romans, it's the same thing. They have to offer themselves before God would listen to them. But here in Abraham, we see God exchanging lives with Abraham, with Abram. It was still Abram at that time. That was his name. You know, and Abraham believed God because of that, and that was where his faith was founded. His faith is founded on a God that he can trust. Abraham didn't have to go anywhere else. Abraham lived in Ur. At the time when God called him, he was in Ur. And Ur was the Las Vegas of that time. It was a very rich place, and Abraham was not poor. And suddenly God asked him to go to a land that he doesn't know of, to be a father of nations, where he doesn't even have one son. But Abraham gave his faith to God. He transformed himself and he gave his faith to God. And that's why he was renamed to Abraham. And we know he was the father of nations. He got a child, Isaac. But does that end there? You know, um, when we read the gospel for today, the Transfiguration tells us that Jesus, Moses, and Elijah were talking about the new Exodus that Jesus is talking about. You see, the family that Abraham was realizing is just the foreshadowing of the family of God that we are to belong to. The land that was promised to Abraham was just a foreshadowing of our exodus to heaven, you know. And that's why Saint Paul in the second reading tells us our citizenship is not here on earth but in heaven. You know, is God asking you to do something impossible sometimes? Does it make sense to give up the good things that you're doing just so that you will be able to give your life to God? You know, Abraham followed God. Abraham trusted God. And we are being called to do the same thing with full trust, just as Abraham did, so that we can go and finish our exodus to heaven.